Hi everyone, I am Sanya Kuller, and in this video, I'm going to talk to you about how you can create the predictive models for coronary heart disease that we talked about in code in Python. So how you can actually represent those models using Python code so that you can continue to experiment. And as I always say, with programming, you can soon even eventually automate your math homework. You know, if you're doing functions or other things in math like FFX or other things, soon you can pretty much automate your homework away. So similarly, we're just going to use Python as a calculator to build these prediction models. And hopefully this can help you better understand the logic of programming and of these predictive models as well, and just kind of tie in things together. So you can kind of also experiment with how these predictive models can generate predicted probabilities of, disease risk for coronary heart disease. So let's get started. So typically on your computer, you would have written IPython notebook. And then when you have IPython notebook here, you will be, so you typically in a terminal, you open up terminal here. One of the few things I use it for though is you write IPython notebook and then you hit enter, and then you'll be brought to like a home page here. It'll look something like this once you run it. And now you can see the decision tree classifier here that, in this notebook, I'm going to show us how to write code for the different prediction models to help us predict coronary heart disease outcomes for patients or for individuals, given a set of patient level features. So this is the decision tree classifier I was talking about, where it's almost like a fortune teller. You have age, you have gender, smoking status, systolic blood pressure, total cholesterol or serum cholesterol level, smoking, again, like all these systolic blood pressure, all these variables here. So, we can write this as a set of if-else statements here. So we're going to try to represent this tree in code. So the first thing we can start out with, so I made this greater than or equal to 45, just for simplicity. So let's start with the left side for now. So this is what we're focusing on for now. We're just going to focus on this side here. So, okay, so now that's where we are. So if age is greater than or equal to 45, and then the else is going to be, this is commented out, age is less than 45, and this is the right part of the tree. This is the left part. Now we can have two decisions. We can go with female and male. So if we go with female, then we're really going down this tree here. So there are two options: if gender equals female, or if gender is male. So here there's two options. This is an else. This is gender is equal to male. It's the same thing, but you just want to be careful. Sometimes this if, and then this is an else. And if you had other conditions, then you could have if, elif as well. So if gender equals is female, then the next thing we want to do is we're going to focus here right now. So let's just focus, and I'm going to essentially just write out this part over here for now. We'll get back to that. Okay, now we're going to focus on this part, which is systolic blood pressure. So if SBP, so we're going to use that. If systolic blood pressure is less than 135, if it's less than 135, then we come here. Else, we are coming here to this part. SVP is greater than 135. And just to make it simple, like just make it if it's less than 135. Otherwise, if it's greater than or equal to, 135, let's just make it a greater than or equal to. So if, systolic blood pressure is less than 135, then we're checking. So now we've come here to total cholesterol. And if total cholesterol, if TC is less than 225, then we can have a variable called CHD risk. Please note that this is the risk of CHD, and right now it's just none. It's an empty string, or we can also call it none. So if TC is less than 225, then CHD risk equals low risk of CHD, which is great. So now we have finished this part over here. So what we can do is we can just, we've finished this part now. You can just like put a slash through it as well. We finished it. But now we have to look at this part that if instead total cholesterol is, so we have if is greater than less than 225, then we have a low risk. Else, this means that TC is greater than or equal to 225 by default. So then what this is saying is we're going along here. If total cholesterol is then greater than or equal to 225, so we can just make it greater than or equal to. Then the next thing we have to see is that the smoking status. If smoking equals, so this is checking for equality. That's what double equals is checking for. If smoking equals no, then we're coming along here, which is saying then CHD risk is low risk of CHD. That's where we are here. Else means that we are a smoker. So this is the other outcome. That's what it means. Or if just to clarify with you guys, you could also check it this way, but but then you just want to be careful that either no or yes, right? So you could also do it this way, either way. So we can just do it this way just for, for the clarity as well. And then if smoking equals yes, then CHD risk is equal to high risk of CHD. And we can put a frowny face because we're unhappy about that. And here we're happy, there's a low risk of CHD. So we have essentially now taken care of, this whole part here. We've taken care of this part as well. We've taken care we've also taken care of this part here. And what we can now also do is, so we checked if systolic blood pressure is less than 135. So we have finished this thing here. So we have visited if it's less than 135, if total cholesterol is less than 225, then we finished this one. We've also checked if total cholesterol instead is greater than 225 and you don't smoke. So we finished this part here. Well, if you do smoke as well, we've also checked that here. So there's only one more thing here that we have to do, that we have to check if systolic blood pressure is greater than or equal to 135, then the same rules would apply as well. So if it's greater than 135, instead of checking for total cholesterol, you just check for smoking status. So you just take this here. And we can just copy it and paste it here. And I'll explain again. So you can copy it and paste it here because what's happening is that, maybe it's better if I erase this part here. So what's happening is that, so if your age is greater than 45, and so now we're in this area here. So what we're trying to do is we're just trying to focus on this part over here of the tree. And if your systolic blood pressure, we focused on this part here, is less than 135, that's what this part was dealing with. It was dealing with this branch, this part being true. You go, if this is true, you go along here. Otherwise, you go along here. These two should be both of these leads should cover all possible outcomes. So again, this should be greater than or equal to 135. So if systolic blood pressure is greater than or equal to 135, then we can just arrive it right at the smoking issue. Whereas if it's less than 135, then we can check total cholesterol, and there is an additional step. there is an additional step here of checking total cholesterol, which you completely skip out on if you have systolic blood pressure that's really high to begin with. Otherwise, if it's low, then you check total cholesterol, and only if that is high, then you check smoking status. So it seems like either one of the two needs to be high for you to check smoking status. So now we have finished this rule here. So you can go from here all the way to here as well, or you can go from here to here to here. So this part right here is what this part is represented as. So I'll just clear all of this and I'll show you guys. So again, what we have just represented is we have just represented this over here. We have represented this, we've represented this down to this, and all these possible outcomes is what we've represented it as. So we've represented, so basically, in short, we have just represented this, and everything here. The low and high risks here. So next, what we're going to do, and that's sort of, again, what is encompassed. So all of this part here, this part right here is aimed at this part here. This is age at the top. And so age is greater than or equal to 45. Gender is female, so we're going here. Then we can check systolic blood pressure next. And then see if it's greater than 135, then we're coming here. Otherwise, greater than or equal to 135. Otherwise, if it's less than, then we're checking total cholesterol level. If this is already less than 225, then we have a low risk of CHD. This corresponds to this. So again, that is this low risk of CHD corresponds to this over here. And the other way is that this as well corresponds, anytime that it's low risk, it's corresponding to the same thing. Low risk of CHD corresponds to this again, any of the low risks. And smoking is yes, then high risk of CHD. So what this part here is, and I'll also trace this out just in case, just to cement the idea, what this is, smoking is yes, CHD risk is high. So what this is coming from is essentially coming down here. Oh, I should have used different colors, but this is coming from here, female. Then it's coming from, your systolic blood pressure being less than 135, your total cholesterol level being high, and your smoking. That's what this is represented. This is representing coming from here, 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 high risk, high risk. And similarly for this part here, this low risk of CHD, what this is representing is, so I'm going to do the same thing for that just to make sure you understand. This is low risk of CHD. And what this is essentially low risk is here. This is age. This is female. Then we're checking if systolic blood pressure is high. That's what this part here is doing here. Then systolic blood pressure is high, and smoking is no. That's exactly what this is capturing, is this relationship from, this is age again, at the top, age here, 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 here. That's what it's capturing here. Age greater than 45, then gender being female. So these two are true. Then systolic blood pressure is higher than 135, and then smoking is no. So these are the different decisions that we are capturing at, so this is what we are doing. We have this, oh gosh. We have this 3, we have this as well, we have this and this. These are the decisions. And then similarly, that's for that one. So now you probably might get a better idea with the next one that we're doing. So now we're going to focus on the male aspect here. The gender is male. Okay, so for the male, we have is we see here. So for male, we have, okay, male is here. So we're just focusing on this part over here, and we're just going to exclude everything else. We're going to have this cut out here and all this stuff cut out here. And what we're going to see is for male, the first thing we check is smoking. So this is the left side. And then this code there, and then else means that smoking equals yes. So this is the right side. So if smoking equals no, then so now we're focused on this side. Then we're checking total cholesterol level. If TC is less than 225, so smoking is no. If TC is less than 225, then we are at low risk of CHD. Else, if it's higher, we go to systolic blood pressure next. Else TC is greater than or equal to 225, then we check systolic blood pressure next. So if SBP is less than 135, we are again low risk of CHD. Okay, so we're low risk of CHD. Otherwise, SBP is greater than or equal to 135, and CHD risk is high risk of CHD. So that's what this is representing, is this high risk of CHD is essentially coming from, total cholesterol being high and systolic blood pressure being high. So we're coming here. And maybe I'll start to zoom out a bit to so that you can keep visualizing with me where we are. So there's a high risk of CHD now. So what we've done is we've gone from here, smoking no, total cholesterol. That's what we were checking here. That if you don't smoke and you check your total cholesterol, if it's less than 225, then you are at low risk of CHD. That's what this is saying. It's coming from here, 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 here. Otherwise, then you check your systolic blood pressure. If you're smoking and your total cholesterol is higher, greater than or equal to 225, then you check your systolic blood pressure. And if it's less than 135, then you're also in the clear. You have a low risk of CHD. Otherwise, you have a high risk of CHD. So the next outcome is if, yes, let's say we were smoking. So let's just focus on this part again. Oh gosh, let's focus on. Now we're focused on this part. And if you're smoking, then you have to check the systolic blood pressure. And if SBP is greater than or equal to 135, so we can focus on this here, then automatically you are high risk. So if this is what we've taken care of, this part here, so we can just kind of mark it. And now what we can look at is if your systolic blood pressure, else SBP, the opposite, because it's an else statement, the exact opposite. So if you're greater than or equal to 135, the opposite is being less than 135. Else systolic blood pressure is less than 135. Then what you do is you check your total cholesterol level. If EC is less than 225, then you're low risk of CHD. Else, that means that your TC is, your total cholesterol is greater than or equal to 225. So then you are at a high risk of CHD. You have to be very careful with these tabs in Python. It's very fussy. Okay, now the tabs are lined up. So now we've hopefully gotten everything, we've gotten, and the quick way to see that is just to see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you can count the number 1, 2, 3 hours here, 1, 2, 3 hours here. And in this section, we have ensured that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So we have those 6 different parts corresponding to these 6 little stems here. So that helps us, make sure that we've gotten the right ones here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's like kind of like a good sanity check. So again, you can just see that we have this here. We've got here, 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 and here, and that kind of corresponds to, that corresponds to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So that's just showing that, these are lined up, which is great. So now we focused on the age greater than or equal to 45 here. And then also the same thing applies for this part here. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we had 5 different ways if we consider all these arrows and the ways we can get to them. So now we finished this part of the tree, which is, age greater than or equal to 45. So we're going to focus on the other part of the tree for now. So we're going to focus on the other part of the tree, which is this part here. And I'm going to do something that you may do like when you have on your own computer as well, but you can definitely always scroll and look at the other part. But I just want to lift this up for now, just so that we can see this other part of the tree. Then we're going to move it back here. So please typically don't do this. It's, you'll have another screen where you'll have this tree, on one screen or one part of your screen, or you've written it down, preferably on a notebook, and you can just refer to it. But just to make it a little bit easier to follow, I'm just moving it up for now. So this else has brought us to this tree here. So again, we can focus on gender, and we can focus on if gender equals female. And then this else is gender equals male. So this is the right part, and then this is the left part. So the female part is here and the male part is here. So for this part now, we just focus on the female section of it, which is now we're just going to check if systolic blood pressure, if SBP, if it is less than 135, then, so that's what this is, then we are at a low risk of CHD. So that's what we have here. So we can just, tick mark that we've gotten this taken care of. The other option is to see that if your else, so there's always, I always recommend writing your else's before you forget. Systolic blood pressure is greater than or equal to 135. And so then what you have to see is that your total cholesterol, if PC is greater than 225, is greater than or equal to 225. So you can just pick one. I just chose a greater than or equal to, or you can make it less than or equal to, but please be consistent. Then if it's greater than or equal to this, then we are at a high risk of CHD. So if you're fairly young, less than 45, and your total cholesterol is also low, even though your systolic is high, then you have a low risk. So we've also just finished this one here right now. We just finished this one with this oh, sorry, not this one, my bad. So we just finished, we finished this one over here. And we just have the other one left. So if total cholesterol is greater than or equal to 225, so if you have a high systolic blood pressure and a high total cholesterol, even at this age, you have a high risk of CHD, so it's not good. Else, what this else statement is saying, total cholesterol is less than 225, and it doesn't matter which one you have in the if and else, both outcomes are mutually exclusive. That means only one of them can be true. So then this is saying that, a female with less than 45 here, now with female, systolic blood pressure was high, greater than or equal to 135, but our total cholesterol is less than 225. So we have a low risk of CHD. And that's what this is showing us here. So that's great. So now we have finished here. We have these three outcomes, 1, 2, and 3. So that's great. And then the other thing is that now we finished this part, we can go on to the last but not least part, which is the male. It's definitely not the least, because it's quite a bit left there. So we are on to the smoking for the male part, which is here. So if smoking is no, so and note that you don't have to check smoking for the females at the young age. If smoking equals no, and then else, this means smoking equals yes. And again, you could also have it as, if you want, you can have it as elif as well. That means else if. That's what it means, is like else if. But since we have two either ors, then that's sort of it. But you can always have, like, if possible, maybe you could also have, like, you'd have to change this, but you could always have like another branch coming out of here, but you'd have to change these terms. And then you could have if, else if, which is called elif, and then else. So if smoking equals no, then we're going to check if total cholesterol, so we're right here, if TC is less than 225, then you are at a low risk. So that's what this is saying. So CHD risk is low. Okay, and then we also have to have this else. So quickly write it before we forget. TC is greater than or equal to 225. Then we check if SVP is less than 135, which is what this is checking here. Then again, you are at a low risk of CHD. Else, SVP is greater than or equal to 135, and then which is right here, and then you are at a high risk of CHD, which is what this is saying. So again, what this is saying is that you're male, if smoking is no, then if your total cholesterol is less than 225, you have a low risk of CHD. So it's like a nested if statement, if inside an if, like Inception almost. The else is saying that, well, if you're smoking, but your total cholesterol is greater than or equal to 225, then what you're doing is you're coming here and you're checking systolic blood pressure. If it's less than 135, you're at a low risk. Otherwise, you're at a high risk of CHD. So this high risk here corresponds to this part, this, and this. And last but not least, if we are smoking, then we just kind of focus attention here more. And then if we're smoking, unfortunately, so what we will see is that we check total cholesterol level. If we don't need anything else, we just check this. If TC is less than 225, somehow if you got your cholesterol on track, then CHD risk is also low. So smoking, yes, but total cholesterol, it's like you don't have any other chances. It's straight to the cholesterol. Else, this means that TC is greater than or equal to 225. And automatically, even at a young age of less than 45, you have a high risk of CHD automatically. So again, like the way basically, so to interpret it, how we would get this over here, if we're thinking how we would get this part here, what does this mean again, just to clarify? So this comes from this essentially, like to get this statement here, you have to come here. You also have to come inside this statement, elif. You also have to come inside this statement and you trace the indents. So we're going to move this else right below the if where it belongs, but just for now to kind of explain the logic. So we had to come to age greater than 45. Yep. And again, this high risk is the path that we're tracing is this path here, this path. Okay, so we had to come to this age part here. We had to come right here to this age being greater than or equal to 45. That's what we did right now. Then we had to come to gender being male, which we did here in this else statement. Then we had to come to smoking, being yes. That is not a hard sign that I'm not really happy about the smoking aspect. And then the total cholesterol is greater than or equal to 225 is right here. And that's how we trace this out here. So we have a set of conditions, if age is greater than 45, this is the else statement here. That's what it means. Then if you're male, and that's what this is else statement is checking. So if you're not a female, then if you're male here, and then smoking. So I'm an LGBTQ ally, but just for biological reasons as well, like male and female, that those would, according to this decision tree, those would be like your like biological orientation you're given, and those could have impact on your disease outcomes. So yeah, this is male then here, and then smoking is yes here, and then total cholesterol is greater than 225. So that's how we get to this high risk here. And if we can trace another one to cement that idea. So again, like let's say we want to see like low risk of CHD for the female. Let's try out this over here. So how did we get there? Well, this low risk. So if so we hear age is greater than 45, which is what this part is saying. Then gender is female, which is what this if statement here is saying too that we have. Then what we're checking is if systolic blood pressure is greater than 135, nope. So it's less than 135. So that's what it less than 135. Oh, actually, I mean, it's greater than or equal to 135. Sorry, greater than or equal to 135. And then your total cholesterol is less than 225. So you are at a low risk. So those are the different things that you need to be true. So you're going to need to have, you're going to need this age, you need to come on this part of the tree, this right part. Then you need to have gender being female. Then what you also need next is you need your systolic blood pressure to be greater than or equal to 135. And then you need your total cholesterol to be less than 225. So age greater than less than 45, female. Systolic blood pressure that is greater than or equal to 135, but total cholesterol that's less than 225. So then you're low risk. So that's how you can represent this whole decision tree in terms of code here. And then you can just bring this here. And you can just have it, see, I just put it like this. So this is typically how you should do it. So you're going to have the same code here now. And yep, now we need to have variable like age, gender, smoking, systolic blood pressure, and the total cholesterol TC. This is total. This is systolic blood pressure. This is smoking status. Are you a smoker? Gender. And this is age in years. So these are all the variables here. So then at the end of this, we can just print please note that your CHD risk of and if you want to be extra cute about it, you can also have an input, my name. It just takes user input. Hi there, please enter your name. And then what you can do is you can just write in Sanya. And then what you can do, hi there. So we can move this on top and then this the bottom here. So we have our name. We have age. I'm not really 36. This is just a made up example. So you have a risk of coronary heart disease that's low. So you can just run this and see, okay, we have a low risk of CHD. So if my age is 36, so it's less than 45. So let's trace through it together. And this is fun because you can kind of see how it changes. So age is less than 45. Yep. Female. Okay, here we go. The age is less than 45. So we're here. Gender, we've taken care of gender. Smoking, well, it's not necessary here in this model. So systolic blood pressure is greater than 135, but my total cholesterol is 180 in this example. So that's low. That's what this is representing. And then we can change it up and say, okay, let's say that we are smoking is yes, and let's say that we are male. And our cholesterol is like 240 or something. Now what is our risk? So let's just check this out before. So our age is 36, so we're here. Gender is male, so we're here. Smoking is yes, so we're here. Systolic is not used again, but total cholesterol is 240, which is here. So we should be high risk accordingly. So let's see what we get. We should hopefully get high risk. And that's exactly what this is predicting for us. So it predicts high risk of coronary heart disease. So you can automatically also just put this directly in a function so you don't have to keep running this again. So if you want to put this in a function right here, all you have to do is you can just do, you can call it a definition, CHD risk prediction decision tree. And this is a little guy saying hi. Hi, little guy. And what we can do is we have a set of variables here that, you know, we're going to be using. Like, so if we see above, we had age, gender, smoking, and these are the variables that we call here. So please make sure that, you know, these are the same spelling as well. So you can just have like age, and you can either choose to set defaults or not. We have gender, male or female. Yes / no. Smoking, and we have this here. And we have systolic blood pressure. And then we have total cholesterol here. And then smoking, we'll just, you know, have this here. We don't need any defaults per se. And so these are the variables that we are using. And then you can return this variable called CHD risk. So let's just see. Okay, so we can just call this right now for anything that we have. And then, oh, we also need one variable, which is also called my name, the patient name. Oh, okay, so we also need the patient name. As well, and hopefully this should work as well. And then now see if we don't have it, we're going to definitely need see my name. We need to have that my name. So this is calling what we already have. Or what we can also do is we can also just directly have these variables. My name equals Uchi. Age equals C2, for instance. Male, we can have smoking is equal to no. Systolic blood pressure is 120 and total cholesterol maybe is 200. Hi there, Fuichi. Please note that your risk of coronary heart disease is low risk of CHD. Amen. So you can see how you can change it. So let's say that this is hypothetically Santa Claus, and Santa Claus is pretty old, you know, let's say 101, for instance, like, you know, smoking, no, systolic blood pressure, total cholesterol might be pretty high. But, oh, okay, so systolic, let's maybe bump this up a bit and let's see when this would change. Smoking, no. Total cholesterol, maybe 230. And then it changes. At some point, it changes from low risk to high risk of CHD. So this is like a function that you can make essentially based on this decision tree classifier. So that's really how you can turn this classifier directly into code that you can use to play around with using these different predictors of, you know, of your age, gender, smoking status, systolic blood pressure, and total cholesterol.